regret that, girl!
Let me go!
The rope was already tight around her wrists when she spoke again. Her voice was dry and thin but steady. She hung against the crooked fence rail, her weight dragging the wire down into the dirt. The man tying the knot did not hurry. His fingers moved slow and careful, like he had tied people like this before. "Don't move," he said. "I can't." "Good." Her breath shook through her ribs. One hand instinctively pressed against her swollen stomach, but the rope jerked her arm back. "My baby. That baby ain't my concern." He stepped back and looked at his work. The woman sagged against the post, her cheek brushing splintered wood. Dust clung to the sweat along her neck. "You'll leave me here?" she asked. "You're lucky that's all I'm leaving you." The outlaw lifted himself into the saddle. The horse shifted beneath him and snorted into the dry air. "You'll die out here," she said quietly. "Maybe. Then why bother tying me?" He leaned forward in the saddle and watched her with pale, patient eyes. "So you feel it longer." The horse turned and started down the dirt road. The sound of hoofs faded slow, like he was in no hurry at all. Mary closed her eyes. The rope burned where it cut into her wrists. Her back throbbed from the fence rail digging through her dress. The baby inside her shifted and she let out a quiet breath. "Easy," she whispered to herself. "Easy." The road stayed empty for a long time. Dust settled. A crow landed on the fence a few posts away and tilted its head. Then another set of hooves came. Mary opened her eyes. A rider approached from the far bend in the road. Not fast. Not cautious either. Just steady. The horse stopped 10 feet away. The rider studied her for a moment. "Why's a woman tied to a fence?" His voice was calm, almost tired. Mary swallowed. "I didn't tie myself." The rider looked down the road the outlaw had taken. "Where's the man who did?" "Gone." The rider slid from the saddle. His boots touched the ground with a dull thud. He walked closer, slow and careful, studying the rope, the bruises, the dirt. "You hurt?" "Yes." "You bleeding?" "Not much." His eyes drifted to her stomach. "You're pregnant." Mary nodded once. 6 months. The rider looked at the knots again. His hand moved toward the rope. "Wait." The voice came from the road behind them. Both heads turned. The outlaw had not gone far at all. He sat on his horse maybe 30 yards away, watching like he had been waiting for this moment. The rider's hand rested on the rope anyway. "She's a thief," the outlaw called. Mary's voice cracked. "That's a lie." The rider glanced between them. "You steal something?" he asked her. "No." The outlaw laughed softly. "She stole plenty." "Untie her," the rider said. "You planning to make me?" The air between them tightened. The wind moved dust along the road, but neither man blinked. The rider spoke again, quieter this time. "She's pregnant." "Not my problem." "She won't last tied like that." "Not your problem either." Mary's breath came faster now. "Please," she whispered. The rider looked at her. "What's your name?" "Mary." The outlaw's smile widened. "She ain't telling you the whole story." The rider ignored him. "Mary," he repeated slowly. "Yes." "You got somewhere to go if I cut this rope?" Mary hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the outlaw and back again. "Anywhere but here." The outlaw leaned forward in his saddle. "You untie her," he said, "you inherit her trouble." The rider looked down at the rope once more. His fingers brushed the knife at his belt. "What kind of trouble?" he asked. The outlaw shrugged. "The kind that follows." Mary's voice trembled but did not break. "Please." The rider studied her face. The dust, the fear, the stubborn quiet behind her eyes. He pulled the knife free. The outlaw's horse shifted as the blade flashed in the sun. "Last chance," the outlaw called. The rider stepped closer to the fence. Mary held still, every muscle tight. The knife pressed against the rope. The outlaw watched from the road. And the blade began to cut. The rope snapped apart under the blade. Mary did not fall right away. For a second she just hung there, arms trembling as if they had forgotten how to belong to her. Then the strength left her shoulders and she dropped hard into the dust. The cowboy crouched beside her but did not touch her. "You all right?" Mary sucked in a breath that shook through her chest. "Don't touch me." He nodded once and pulled his hand back. Behind them the outlaw's horse shifted on the road. Leather creaked softly as the man leaned in the saddle. "Told you," he said. "She bites." Mary pushed herself upright. Her wrists were raw where the rope had burned the skin. The cowboy looked at them. "You should sit." "I'm fine." "You're not." "I said I'm fine." She tried to stand and nearly tipped forward. The cowboy steadied her elbow before she could protest. "Easy." She jerked away from his grip. "I said don't touch me." The outlaw chuckled from the road. "See what I mean?" The cowboy ignored him. "You bleeding anywhere?" "No." "You sure?" "Yes." The cowboy stood slowly and faced the outlaw. "She's pregnant." "That ain't news," the outlaw replied. Mary wiped dust from her mouth and glared toward the road. "You said you'd let me go." The outlaw shrugged. "I said I'd leave you alive." "That's not the same." "Close enough." The cowboy stepped a little closer to Mary, placing himself between her and the road. "She's coming with me," he said. The outlaw tilted his head. "You know who she is?" "No." "You will." Mary spoke before the cowboy could answer. "He's lying." The outlaw smiled wider. "That's the first true thing she said all morning." The cowboy looked at Mary. "What did you take from him?" "Nothing." "You run from him?" "Yes." "Why?" Mary hesitated. The silence stretched just long enough for the outlaw to enjoy it. "Because he killed my husband," she said. The road went quiet. The cowboy's eyes shifted slowly back to the outlaw. "That true?" The outlaw spat into the dust. Man stuck his nose where it didn't belong. "You kill him?" "He died." "That's not what I asked." The outlaw leaned back in his saddle. "Don't matter now." Mary stepped closer to the cowboy. "Please," she said quietly. He glanced down at her. "To where?" "Anywhere but here." The cowboy looked past her at the empty stretch of road, the crooked fence, the dust drifting in the heat. Then he sighed once and nodded. "All right." The outlaw straightened in the saddle. "You sure about that?" The cowboy did not answer. He walked to his horse and loosened the reins. Mary stood there uncertain, rubbing her wrists. The outlaw watched both of them with patient amusement. "You shelter her," he called, "you inherit her trouble." The cowboy helped Mary toward the horse. She hesitated beside the stirrup. "I can climb." "Didn't say you couldn't." She pulled herself up slowly, wincing as she settled onto the saddle. The cowboy mounted behind her and gathered the reins. The outlaw's voice followed them as the horse turned away. "You don't even know her name," he said. The cowboy answered without looking back. "I do now." "What is it then?" The horse started down the road. The cowboy spoke calmly. "Mary." The outlaw laughed. "That ain't her real name." The horse kept walking. Dust rose beneath its hooves as they moved farther down the road. For a long time nobody spoke. Finally the cowboy said quietly behind her, "Name's Eli." Mary stared ahead at the empty land. She did not answer. The house appeared at the top of a low hill, a squat rectangle of weathered wood and fading white paint. Its porch sagged in the middle, steps cracked, the railing loose, but it stood solid enough to offer shelter. Mary stared at it, heart hammering, unsure if this was safety or another trap. Dust clung to her hair, her dress, and the rope burns on her wrists still stung. Eli dismounted and held out a hand, rough and steady. "Come on," he said. Mary hesitated, then climbed down slowly, clutching her stomach. She kept her eyes on him, mistrust in every movement. "Inside," he said simply. The door groaned as he pushed it open. The air smelled faintly of smoke, wood polish, and something heavier, loss. A small toy lay on the floor by the wall, half buried in dust. Mary's gaze lingered on it. "You live alone?" she asked. "Yes." Mary's voice was sharper than she intended. "Where's your wife?" Eli didn't answer right away. He ran a hand along the worn table, eyes on the floorboards. "She's buried." Mary's fingers tightened over her stomach. She swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." She moved further into the house, brushing dust from the table as she passed. Her eyes caught an old photograph in a cracked frame. A man and a small child smiled at the camera. She lifted it, hands trembling. "You had a child." "Yes." Silence fell between them. The only sound was the soft wind scraping against the house outside. Mary pressed her fingers to her lips, thinking of her own loss. "I'm afraid," she said finally. "Afraid of losing this one too." Eli nodded slowly, looking out the window at the empty fields beyond. "No one's taking your baby while I'm here." Mary shook her head, voice small. "You don't know that." "No," he said softly, "but I know fear." They moved through the house, Eli showing her a room with a narrow bed, blankets folded at the foot. Mary dropped onto it, exhausted, yet alert. Every creak of the floor, every shadow made her jump. "Who's chasing me?" she asked. Eli leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Not sure yet. But they won't stop." Mary swallowed. "Because of what?" "The past," Eli said, voice low. "Some debts you can't see, some debts you can't ignore." Mary pressed a folded letter into his hand. "If something happens to me, this goes to the sheriff." Eli's eyes flicked down at the seal, a symbol of authority, official and ominous. "The sheriff?" "Yes. He'll know what to do." Eli shook his head slowly. "He works for the same people chasing you." Mary's eyes went wide. "Then I have nowhere safe." "Not completely," he admitted. "But this house, it asks no questions." "That's something." Outside, the wind rose, rattling the window panes. Dust swirled in the low light of late afternoon. Mary leaned against the bedframe, staring at Eli. "Why are you helping me?" Eli paused, voice quiet. "Because no one deserves to be left tied to a fence. Because someone has to care when the world doesn't." Mary's eyes flicked to the toy on the floor again. "And what about them?" He followed her gaze. "They're memories," he said. "Not people anymore. They won't hurt you here." For a long moment, neither spoke. The house settled around them, quiet but heavy with history. Mary rubbed her wrists, feeling the rope burn sting with every movement. "Will he come back?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. "Maybe," Eli said. "But not tonight." Mary let her head fall against the pillow, closing her eyes. Her body shook with the tension of the morning, and finally, slowly, she breathed out. The weight on her chest eased slightly. Eli watched her, silent. His hand hovered over the letter she had given him, but he did not open it yet. The room held a fragile peace, punctuated by the distant sound of the wind in the empty fields, the faint creak of the porch, the memory of horses' hooves fading in the distance. Outside, the sky darkened into a muted purple, shadows stretching across the porch and up the side of the house. Mary pressed her hands to her stomach again, feeling life inside her that needed protection, and for the first time since being tied to the fence, she felt a small flicker of safety. Eli stepped to the window, eyes scanning the horizon. "They'll find out eventually," he said, almost to himself. Mary turned her head toward him. And then? We'll be ready, he said. She didn't answer, only nodded, exhausted but aware. The house waited silently around them, offering refuge without judgment, walls heavy with memory but solid, still standing. Mary leaned back, letting herself believe, if only a little, that she could survive the night. The distant road was empty now. Dust settled over the fence where her terror had begun. And for the first time, Mary allowed herself to feel she might escape it. The house held them both in its quiet, worn embrace, a pause between fear and the unknown that awaited them outside its walls. Mary sat on the edge of the narrow bed, hands folded over her stomach. The house was quiet except for the soft creak of the floorboards as Eli moved around, stacking dishes and sweeping dust from the corner. She had been silent since they arrived, but the weight pressing on her chest refused to be ignored any longer. "My husband," she began, voice low, "he kept records." Eli stopped sweeping and leaned on the broom, eyes narrowing. "Records?" "Yes," she said, swallowing. "Things he saw, things he wrote down." "What kind of things?" "Land deals. Killings. Corruption." Her hands shook slightly. "Important people. Men with power who thought nothing could touch them." Eli stepped closer. "Important how?" Mary's eyes darted toward the window, toward the empty fields beyond. "The governor." Eli froze. The broom in his hand tilted slightly before he put it down. "The governor?" Mary nodded. They killed my husband. Said he asked too many questions. Tried to stop them. I only got this." She unfolded a letter, creased and stamped with authority. "If anything happened to me, I was to deliver it to the sheriff." Eli took the letter slowly, turning it over in his hands. His jaw tightened. "Sheriff works for the same men." Mary's eyes went wide. "Then I have nowhere safe. I thought this house." He cut her off gently. "This house offers shelter. Nothing more. You can't trust anyone out there." "Not yet." She pressed her hands to her stomach, feeling the weight of the baby inside her. "He'll come for me," she whispered. "The outlaw. They won't stop." Eli's voice was steady, but there was a shadow of worry. "Why now? Why reveal this?" "I can't hide it," she said. "Not from you. Not from anyone. They'll kill me if I stay silent." Eli folded the letter and set it on the table. "Then we protect it. That's all we can do. Keep it safe. Keep you safe." Mary shook her head. "You don't know them. You don't know what they can do." "I know enough," Eli said. "Enough to know letting them find you here isn't an option." She pressed her forehead to her knees, voice quiet. "I just wanted to survive the day. I didn't ask for this fight, this everything." Eli knelt beside her. "You didn't ask for it. But it's here. And now, you have to be smarter than them. Stronger. Not just to survive, but to make sure your baby survives too." Mary looked at him, eyes wide and wet. "I don't even know if I can." "You can," he said firmly. "You're still here. You're breathing. You made it this far. That counts for something." She pressed her hands over the letter. "What if they find it? What if they come here?" Eli's eyes went to the window, to the distant road stretching toward the horizon. "Then we fight smart. We move. We hide. We don't let them touch you." Mary's voice was barely audible. "And the sheriff?" Eli shook his head. "Can't trust him. Not with what you carry." She swallowed, nodding slowly, absorbing the reality. There was no one outside these walls she could trust. No help. Only the house, its silence, and Eli. Mary pressed her hands to her stomach again, feeling the life growing inside her, the fragile pulse she had to protect. Fear wrapped around her chest tight, but beneath it, a thread of resolve began to weave itself. "I don't want to run forever," she said. Eli looked at her, expression softening. You won't. We'll find a way to end it. One step at a time. She nodded, drawing in a long breath. Outside, the wind shifted, ruffling the dry grass, carrying the distant echo of a horse's hooves. Her heart quickened. The threat was still out there. The outlaw had not forgotten. The governor's shadow stretched far and wide. Eli placed a hand on the table, close to hers. We keep this letter safe. You rest. You heal. We wait for the right moment. Mary's fingers lingered over the paper, tracing the stamp. And if the moment never comes? It will, Eli said firmly. It has to. She allowed herself a small nod. Not relief. Not safety. But resolve. The house around them was quiet, heavy with memory and dust, but for now, it was enough. She pressed her back against the wall, listening to the creak of the floor, the hum of the wind, the faint echo of a world that wanted her gone. The house offered no questions, but it did offer time. Time she intended to use. Time to survive. Time to plan. And perhaps, one day, time to make them pay. The wind rose again, rattling the window panes, and Mary felt the first real sense of purpose in days. She would not be tied to a fence. She would not be silenced. The shadows outside would have to wait. Inside, she was alive. Inside, she had a chance. The letter sat between them, folded but full of power, and for the first time, Mary believed that maybe, just maybe, she could outlast the men who thought they could bury her. The hoofbeats came first as a faint rhythm over the dry ground, distant but deliberate. Mary's stomach tightened. She pressed her hands against it, feeling the baby shift, small and urgent inside her. Eli stepped to the window, peering out through the slats. His jaw tightened. They're close, he said quietly. Mary's voice trembled. The outlaw? Eli nodded. And he brought company. Outside, 3 riders appeared on the ridge. Dust trailed behind their horses in long, choking clouds. The outlaw led them, riding tall, eyes scanning the terrain with the precision of someone who expected to find what he was looking for. Mary backed toward the bed, instinctively pressing herself into the corner. Eli stepped in front of her. Stay here. Mary shook her head. I'm not hiding. You will, he said firmly. Or they'll get both of us. The outlaw's voice carried over the wind. Thought you could hide her here, Eli? Thought wrong. Eli stepped onto the porch, standing tall, hands near his belt. She's not going anywhere with you. She stole something, the outlaw said. Worth more than she knows. Mary's chest tightened. I didn't steal anything. Sure you didn't, the outlaw called, lips curling. She stole a future. A life meant to stay buried. Eli's hand rested on the revolver at his side. You're done threatening her. The outlaw laughed, low and sharp. Or what? You gonna stop me? You're just one man, Eli. One man against what I answer to. Mary stepped closer, voice trembling but defiant. You killed my husband. Should have stayed quiet, the outlaw said. Would have lived. Now, this is your problem too. The riders shifted behind him, impatient, restless. Dust rose from their horses' hooves like smoke. The wind carried the metallic scent of the morning air, sharp and clean. Eli didn't move his hand from his revolver. I said leave her. She's coming, the outlaw spat. She belongs to us. Mary swallowed hard, feeling the rope burn still stinging, the memory of being tied flashing sharply in her mind. No, she whispered. I won't go back. The outlaw's eyes narrowed. You'll learn. Eli took a step forward. Not while I'm here. The 3 riders shifted, one leaning down to whisper something. The outlaw raised a hand. You've got 3 days, he called. 3 days to disappear. After that, we come for everything you care about. For what? Mary asked, voice small but steady. For the records. For the letter. For the truth you carry. Eli's fingers tightened around the grip of his revolver. You won't get it. The outlaw smiled. I always get what I want. Time's short. Use it wisely. He kicked his horse forward and they began to descend the ridge, dust rising in his wake. The wind shifted again, sweeping the dust into the porch, into Mary's hair, into her clothes. Her pulse slowed, but only slightly. They'll be back, Eli said, voice low. Sooner than you think. Mary's hands trembled over her stomach. I thought this house would be enough. That somehow it would keep them away. Eli shook his head. No house can stop men like him. Only you surviving, only being smart, only knowing when to fight and when to hide. She looked toward the ridge where the dust had settled into nothing. And the sheriff? Eli's eyes darkened. Not him. He's part of it too. Can't trust him. Never could. Mary pressed her lips together, swallowing the fear rising inside her. The weight of the letter in her pocket, the knowledge of her husband's death, the looming presence of the outlaw, all of it pressed against her chest like a stone. We have 3 days, Eli said, voice quiet, almost a whisper to himself. 3 days to make a plan. Mary's hands found the letter, folded and stiff in her pocket. And if they come before then? Eli's hand brushed hers briefly, not touching the letter, just offering steady reassurance. Then we fight smart. We run if we have to. We don't give them what they want. Mary's eyes flicked to the horizon again. The riders were gone now, just the ridge and the dust. But the echo of hooves remained in her mind, the memory of hands on rope, the fear that would not leave her. She pressed a hand to her stomach again, feeling the life inside her. I won't let them take this. Not this one too. Eli nodded. Then we survive. That's all that matters for now. They moved back inside the house together, the door closing behind them with a soft thud. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher, painting long shadows across the dry earth, across the fence where terror had first touched her. The quiet inside the house was fragile, heavy with unspoken plans, but it was theirs for the moment. Mary sat on the bed, staring at the floor, feeling the rope burn sting anew, but this time as a memory, not a threat. Eli leaned against the wall, eyes scanning the window, the horizon beyond, already thinking, already planning. They had 3 days. 3 days to prepare, to survive, and maybe, just maybe, to fight back. The outlaw had made his threat, and Mary felt it deep in her chest. But the fire in her belly, the determination to protect the life inside her, had taken root. Outside, the wind whispered through the empty fields. Inside, the house waited, patient, silent, and for the first time, Mary allowed herself to imagine that maybe, she and her baby could outlast them. Mary stepped out behind the house, drawn by a path she hadn't noticed before. The orchard was quiet, rows of gnarled trees stretching across the low hill. The wind rustled through dry leaves, carrying a faint, bitter scent of earth and decay. She followed the narrow trail until it ended at 2 small, simple graves. The soil was dark, freshly turned, and the wooden markers leaned slightly, weathered by sun and rain. Eli came up behind her, quiet, careful not to startle her. You found them, he said softly. Mary knelt slowly, fingers brushing the tops of the markers. Who, she began, voice catching. My wife and child, Eli said, standing a step back, his shadow stretching long over the ground. Fever took them years ago. I buried them myself. Mary swallowed, pressing a hand to her stomach. I'm afraid of losing mine, she whispered. I don't even know if I can do this. You can, Eli said quietly. I know you can. You're still here. She looked up at him, eyes wide. You don't know what they can do. The outlaw, the governor's men, they'll come for me. For the baby. They might, he admitted. But out here, we have a chance. A place to think, to plan. A place to breathe. Mary traced the edge of one grave with her fingers, dirt crumbling into the wind. You buried them out here. Away from the town, away from everyone. They didn't even get a name in the papers. They were mine, Eli said, voice low. That's all that matters. Mary pressed her hands to her stomach again, feeling the life moving within her. I can't lose this one too. I won't. Eli stepped closer, kneeling beside her. You won't. I won't let it happen. They sat there together, silent except for the wind and the rustle of leaves. The graves were small, unadorned, but they spoke of loss, of love, of pain carried alone. Mary let herself study them, imagine the child she had lost inside, and feel Eli's presence beside her as something solid in the chaos of her life. I have something for you, she said, pulling the folded letter from her pocket. Her hands trembled slightly as she held it out. It's everything my husband left. If something happens, it has to be protected. Eli took it, careful not to crush it, turning the paper over in his hands. This is dangerous, he said. The men who want you, they'll kill for this. Mary nodded. I know. That's why you have it. Because you're here. Because you understand. Eli looked down at the graves again, then back at her. I do. And I'll keep it safe. You'll keep it safe. Together. Mary let out a long breath, leaning back against the soft earth. The orchard held them both in its quiet, haunting stillness. The trees bent slightly in the wind, shadows stretching across the soil, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to feel a thread of hope. Why did you bury them out here? She asked finally, voice small. Because it was the only place that felt right, Eli said. Away from the town, away from judgment. Here, they're at peace. Mary pressed her hand to her stomach again, feeling the baby stir. I hope this one can grow up somewhere safe. Somewhere that won't take them from me. Eli reached out and laid a hand gently over hers. They will. I'll make sure of it. They stayed there in silence, listening to the wind, to the subtle creak of the orchard trees, to the faint memory of what had been lost and what still might be saved. Mary traced the soil with her fingers one last time, then stood slowly, determination settling over her like a shield. Eli watched her, nodding once. Ready to go back inside? Mary hesitated, looking at the horizon. The road was empty, but the weight of the outlaw's threat still pressed in. Yes, she said finally. We have work to do. Together, they turned and walked back toward the house. The graves behind them remained silent, witnesses to grief, memory, and a quiet promise that life, her child's life, would not be given up without a fight. The orchard faded behind them, but its lessons stayed. Loss could carve deep lines, but it could also teach endurance. Mary pressed the letter close to her chest, feeling the baby kick gently, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of purpose. The house waited silently ahead, dust motes catching in the light through the windows, walls holding their secrets. Inside, they would plan. Outside, the world threatened, but for now, they had a quiet moment, a fragile chance to breathe, to survive, to prepare for the days ahead. The wind shifted again, rustling leaves and carrying distant echoes of hooves, reminders that danger was never far. Mary's hands lingered on her stomach, promise and resolve intertwining. Whatever came next, she would face it. And the baby inside her would live. The town felt smaller than she remembered. Mary and Eli rode in quietly, keeping to the shadows of empty alleys and low wooden storefronts. Dust rose in thin clouds under the morning sun. Mary's stomach pressed against her, each step of the horse reminding her of vulnerability. Eli's eyes swept constantly, calculating, aware. They'll know we're here, she whispered. They might, Eli said. But we need him. Mary glanced at him. The sheriff? Yes. He can help, if he's honest. They dismounted in front of the office. A single bell hung above the door, swinging lazily in the wind. Mary's hand lingered near her stomach, fear and hope twisting together. She stepped forward. Inside, the sheriff sat behind a wide desk, papers stacked neatly, a revolver resting just beyond reach. His face was lined, tired, but his eyes were sharp, wary. He looked up when Eli and Mary entered. You're accusing powerful men, he said flatly. Men who don't like questions. I'm telling the truth, Mary said, voice trembling slightly but firm. My husband kept records. They killed him. Now they're after me. The sheriff picked up a folded letter from the desk, scanning the seal and the words quickly. You should leave town, he said, voice quiet but deliberate. Just leave? Eli asked, stepping forward. That's it? They'll kill you if you stay, the sheriff whispered. This isn't something to fight in the open. Not here. Not now. Mary's eyes narrowed. They already tried. The sheriff's hand lingered over the revolver. You don't understand. This goes deeper than one man. You're tangled in something too big. Eli's jaw tightened. I understand enough to know you're lying. The sheriff's eyes flicked toward the door. His movements were subtle, almost casual, but Mary noticed. A signal, just enough. The outlaw walked in before she could ask. The sheriff didn't even look away from his papers. Eli, the outlaw said, calm, almost amused. Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd hide her longer. Eli's hand went to his revolver. Mary stepped closer, pressing herself behind him. The outlaw's eyes scanned the room, then rested on Mary. She's worth more alive than dead. But you're outnumbered. Choices need to be made. Mary swallowed, gripping Eli's sleeve. You won't take me. You think you have a choice, the outlaw said, lips curling. You've been running too long. Time's up. The sheriff finally looked up. He's right, he said calmly. There's no way out if you stay here. Mary's chest tightened. Why? The sheriff leaned back, voice low. Because I'm on their side. Always have been. You should have known better than to trust me. Eli's hand tightened around the grip of his revolver. So that's it? That's it, the sheriff said. His hand rested briefly near the desk, near the weapon he wasn't planning to use on the outlaw, but a signal enough for him to know what was coming. The outlaw stepped closer. Funny how the world works, isn't it? Allies where you thought none. Betrayal where you least expect it. Mary pressed herself tighter against Eli. We're not leaving, she said. You don't get to choose, the outlaw replied. Eli stepped forward, voice low but sharp. Try me. The outlaw's smile was slow, deliberate. Oh, I will. And when I do, your choices will be obvious. Mary's hands trembled. She looked at Eli, trusting him, clinging to the small hope he represented. Outside the office window, the sun climbed higher, casting shadows across the wooden floors, mixing with the dust motes drifting lazily. The sheriff's eyes flicked once more to the outlaw, a quiet acknowledgement that the trap had worked. Mary realized fully then, there was nowhere to run, no ally to trust, and every step forward could be deadly. Eli's hand hovered over his revolver. Mary's stomach tightened, baby moving sharply, as if sensing the danger. You shouldn't have come here, the outlaw said. And you shouldn't have found her, Eli replied, voice calm but edged with steel. A long moment passed. Dust settled over the wooden floor, the only sound the faint creak of the door hinge. The sheriff sat silently, unreadable, knowing he had betrayed her but willing to let events play out. Mary swallowed hard, hands pressing over her stomach. Fear throbbed, but beneath it, determination began to build. She would survive this. She had to. The outlaw stepped closer. Eli's revolver raised just enough to be ready. The sheriff didn't move. Mary's heart raced, the weight of everything pressing down. You're going to regret this, the outlaw said, smirking. Eli's eyes didn't leave him. We'll see. And just like that, the office became a battlefield of silence, threats, and unspoken plans. The sheriff's lie had set the stage. Outside, the town carried on unaware, while inside, the tension coiled tight, waiting to snap. The office erupted before Mary could blink. Guns flashed, smoke curled in the corners, and the smell of gunpowder filled the small room. Eli grabbed her arm, yanking her behind the heavy desk as bullets ricocheted off wood and tin. Mary pressed herself low, heart hammering in her chest, stomach trembling with every shock of movement. "Run!" Eli shouted. "I can't," she cried, her voice cracking. "Yes, you can. Now!" Mary scrambled, knocking over a chair, dust and splinters flying into her eyes. She tripped, but Eli's hand was there, steadying her, dragging her through the back door into the narrow alley behind the building. Outside, the sun struck hard, shadows twisting with smoke and fire. The outlaw's laughter echoed over the valley. "She's worth more alive. Don't kill her yet." Mary pressed herself against Eli, feeling his strength, feeling the pulse of urgency in his veins. The sheriff had disappeared somewhere, silent and complicit, leaving only the chaos behind. Horses stamped in the street, hooves pounding against the wooden boards, dust rising like a storm. "They'll surround us," Mary gasped. "Then we move fast." Eli snapped. He pulled her toward the narrow lane between buildings, dodging a cloud of smoke. Mary stumbled, catching herself against the rough wood of a wall. The baby inside her shifted sharply, and fear tore through her. "Hold on," Eli said, gripping her waist to steady her. They burst into the back of a stable. The air was thick with hay and the smell of animals. Mary crouched behind a stack of crates, brushing hair from her sweaty face. She could hear the outlaw's voice, shouting directions, the sound of boots on boards, men cursing, guns raised. Eli checked the door. "We can't go back that way. Too many of them." Mary's fingers trembled as she clutched the letter hidden inside her jacket. "And the house?" "Gone," Eli said grimly. "Fire's spreading." Mary pressed her forehead to the wood, listening to the chaos outside. The office, the sheriff's betrayal, the outlaw, all of it blurred into a single pulse of danger she couldn't escape. Her body shook, exhaustion mixing with terror. "They'll come for us," she whispered. "They will," Eli admitted. "But not here. Not while we can control the next step." Mary's stomach ached as fear pressed down on her. "I don't even know how to fight them. I don't have a choice." "Yes, you do," Eli said. "You run smart. You hide smart. You fight when you have to. That's your choice." Outside, the fire had caught the dry grass near the road, flames licking at wooden fences, smoke curling into the sky. The riders yelled, but the wind carried the sound away, leaving only echoes. Mary pressed herself closer to Eli, letting him shield her from the sight of flames, from the memory of the outlaw's threats. "I can't lose this one," she said quietly, hands trembling over her stomach. "You won't," Eli said firmly. "I'll make sure of it." They moved cautiously through the stable, ducking under beams, stepping over fallen tools, their breath ragged. The baby kicked sharply, reminding Mary that every second counted. Her pulse raced with urgency, fear sharpened by every sound outside. Eli peeked through a crack in the wall. "The sheriff is gone. Outlaw too." They split up to look. "We can use it." Mary nodded, swallowing hard. "Where do we go?" "Mountains," Eli said. "We know the paths. They won't follow easily. We hide, we wait, we survive." Mary glanced back toward the burning office. Smoke rose thick, curling above the town. The sheriff's betrayal, the fire, the chaos, it all pressed against her, but something inside her hardened. She would survive. She had to. Eli reached for her hand. "Stay close. Don't panic." Mary took a deep breath, pressing her forehead to his shoulder. "I can't believe this is happening." "Believe it," Eli said. "Then we move." They stepped outside the stable, careful and low, moving through smoke and dust, avoiding the flickering firelight. Hooves struck the dirt roads behind them, the outlaw's men shouting, but the alleyways and broken fences gave them cover. Mary felt each step, each heartbeat, like a drum pushing her forward. Finally, they reached a ridge overlooking the valley. The fire below spread, consuming the office, the town's quiet image destroyed in a swirl of smoke and embers. Mary pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling the baby kick sharply. Relief and fear tangled inside her. "They'll come again," she whispered. They might, Eli said, scanning the valley below. But not tonight. Tonight, we survive. That's all that matters. Mary's shoulders relaxed slightly. For a moment, the chaos below became a distant roar. Above, the sky stretched white and empty, wind carrying ash and smoke. The baby moved again, and Mary felt the fragile promise of life she had to protect. Eli rested a hand on her back, steadying her, silent but present. She clutched his arm in return, leaning into the strength he offered. The fire consumed the valley, but they had escaped. For now, they had each other, the baby, and a chance to plan their next move. Mary pressed her eyes closed, listening to the wind, to the distant crackle of flames, to the rhythm of their escape. The outlaw had destroyed much, but not everything. She and Eli were still alive. And in that, she found the first spark of hope. Outside, the sun rose higher, and the smoke spiraled into the pale morning sky. Inside her chest, life moved strong and insistent, reminding her that the fight was far from over, but it could be survived. The mountains were cold at night. Mary huddled against Eli, her back pressed to his chest as they crouched behind a cluster of jagged rocks. The wind whipped through the ridges, carrying the scent of pine and distant smoke, and the moonlight painted shadows across the valley below. Every sound was amplified, the snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, the faint echo of hooves far off. "They're out there," Mary whispered, pressing a hand to her stomach. "They are," Eli said softly. "But not close enough to reach us tonight." Her breath came fast. "I can't sleep like this. I keep thinking about him, the outlaw, the sheriff. The baby." "You won't lose the baby," Eli said firmly. "Not while I'm here. Not while we're smart." Mary closed her eyes, trying to will the fear away. But the night carried memories, her husband's death, the rope cutting into her wrists, the fire in the valley. Shadows moved with intent, shapes in the wind that weren't really there but felt real enough to make her tremble. "Eli," she whispered again. "Yeah? What if they never stop?" "They will," he said, voice steady, almost gentle. "We're not finished yet. And they're not as clever as they think." Mary shifted slightly, drawing in a deep, shaky breath. "I hate that I feel safe with you." Eli's hand brushed hers. "You should. You're allowed to feel that. Just for tonight." The silence stretched, filled with distant animal calls, the wind through the trees, and the subtle rhythm of their breathing. Mary pressed her hands over her stomach, feeling the baby kick sharply. The life inside her was small, fragile, yet insistent, a constant reminder of what she had to protect. "I keep thinking about the graves," she said softly. "The ones you buried. It feels like death follows us." Eli's jaw tightened. "Death is everywhere out here. But it doesn't have to follow you. Not tonight. Not us." She leaned back against him, letting the warmth of his body shield her from the cold. "I don't want to be afraid anymore." "You won't be," he said. "Not always. You survive, you fight, you protect this life. That's enough courage." The wind shifted again, carrying a faint sound. Mary's head snapped toward it, eyes wide. Eli pressed a finger to his lips. Silence. A distant shadow moved along the ridge. "They're scouting," he whispered. "Trying to find us." Mary's stomach clenched. "We can't hide forever." "No," Eli said. "But tonight, we can rest. Tomorrow, we move again. We survive." The stars above were sharp, cold, and distant. Mary pressed her cheek to Eli's shoulder. "I hate that I want to trust you," she murmured. "Trust isn't a weakness," he said softly. "It's a choice. You're allowed to make it." She swallowed hard, closing her eyes. "I don't want to die out here." "You won't," he said. "I promise." Hours passed in silence, punctuated by the distant calls of coyotes and the occasional gust of wind. Mary pressed herself closer, feeling the baby shift again, tiny movements like signals of hope. The mountains held them, jagged and unforgiving, but for the first time in days, Mary allowed herself to feel a thread of safety. Eli's voice broke the quiet. We'll have to cross the valley at first light. They'll be watching all the passes. But we know a path. We can do this. Mary nodded, trembling, exhaustion and fear mingling in her limbs. And if they catch us? They won't, Eli said, voice low and certain. Not together. Not if you keep listening, keep moving, keep fighting. She pressed her hand to her stomach. I won't fail. You won't, he said, pressing a hand over hers. We won't. The wind carried distant murmurs of the valley below. The outlaw, the sheriff, the men, they were out there, relentless. But in this ridge, in the cold mountain night, Mary found a moment to breathe, a chance to steel herself. The stars above were silent witnesses. The baby inside moved again, tiny and insistent, a pulse of life against the fear. Mary's hands lingered on her stomach, a promise to survive, to endure, to fight. Eli shifted closer, wrapping an arm around her. Night whispers, but they don't define us, he said. Mary let herself rest, eyelids heavy, heart racing, aware that every moment was borrowed but necessary. Outside, the shadows moved and the wind carried distant threats, but for now, they were safe. The mountains held them, the night cloaked them, and for the first time, Mary allowed herself to hope that the baby would live, that she would survive, and that dawn might bring a path forward. Dawn came slow, pale and trembling over the horizon. Mary pressed herself close to Eli as they moved through the jagged ridge, careful and quiet. The valley below stretched wide, broken by dry creeks and clusters of trees. Dust from the previous day still lingered in the air, settling over rocks and low shrubs. The outlaw's men could be anywhere. Every step forward was measured, deliberate. Stay low, Eli whispered, hand brushing hers. Eyes forward, ears sharp. Mary nodded, stomach tightening with each movement. The baby shifted inside her, a small, insistent reminder of why she had to survive. She focused on the path ahead, tracing every shadow, every dip in the terrain. They'll be watching the passes, she said softly. They are, Eli said, voice low, tense. But we know a hidden route. Narrow, steep. They won't follow easily. Mary swallowed hard. I can't believe we're doing this. Leaving everything behind. The house, the graves. You can, Eli said. Because it's the only way forward. The valley stretched wide, pale morning light catching on rocks and dry grass. A faint breeze carried distant sounds, the caw of a crow, the rustle of leaves, the faint echo of hooves far away. Mary pressed herself closer to Eli as they descended the ridge, careful with every step. They're still after us, she whispered. Yes, Eli said. But they won't get us. Not today. The path narrowed, rocky and treacherous. Mary's boots slipped once on loose stone, and Eli's hand caught her arm, steadying her without a word. Her heart thumped in her chest, pulse sharp. You all right? He asked. Yes, she said, voice tight. I'm fine. You'll need to be sharper than fine, he said. The descent was slow. Every sound made Mary flinch, twigs snapping, birds taking flight, the wind shifting against the rocks. She kept her eyes on the ground, memorizing the path, the shadows, the narrow ledges that would hide them if needed. Almost there, Eli whispered after what felt like hours. Just past this bend, there's cover. A thicket. Small stream. We can rest for a moment. Mary nodded, swallowing hard. Her legs ached, stomach tense, but she moved forward, trusting Eli's guidance. The baby inside her kicked sharply, a reminder of fragility and life she had to protect. They rounded a bend and saw the thicket. Small trees and underbrush offered concealment, a natural barrier from sightlines below. A thin creek ran through it, water shallow but clear. Mary sank to the ground beside it, letting the cold brush against her palms. Rest a moment, Eli said, kneeling beside her. Drink. Catch your breath. Mary bent over the water, cupping her hands. She drank slowly, listening to the creek's soft gurgle, feeling her pulse slow just a fraction. The valley stretched below, empty and wide, but every shadow felt like a threat. They'll be back, she whispered. They might, Eli admitted. But we're moving smarter now. Not hiding.
Not waiting. We control this moment.
Mary pressed her hands over her stomach, feeling the life inside her.
I can't lose this one.
You won't, Eli said firmly.
We both know that. Keep focused. Keep moving. That's the only way. The Outlaw's riders had not followed them here, not yet. Dust rose in faint plumes far off, evidence they were still being tracked.
Mary's hands shook as she folded the letter against her chest. Her husband's words, the records, all that she carried, they were dangerous, but necessary.
We're not safe yet, Eli said, scanning the valley.
Once we cross the stream, the path narrows again.
Rocky cliffs. Easy to defend. Hard to follow. Mary nodded, breath still uneven. I trust you.
You have to, he said.
Because the only way out is forward.
She pressed herself against him again, feeling the warmth, the solidity of his presence. The baby moved, small and insistent, and Mary let herself feel a thread of hope.
Ready? Eli asked. Mary straightened, swallowing hard. Yes.
Together, they rose and stepped into the thicket.
Branches scraped against their skin, leaves rustled underfoot, but they moved silently, carefully.
The creek gurgled beside them, water slipping over stones, a soft counterpoint to the tension pressing in from every direction. The path ahead narrowed further. Cliffs loomed, shadows dark and sharp.
Every movement had to be precise.
Mary felt fear, yes, but beneath it, resolve hardened in her chest.
They can't touch us, Eli whispered. Not if we stay smart.
Mary nodded, pressing her hand over her stomach again.
We'll make it.
The valley stretched below, empty but watched, dangerous but passable. With each step forward, Mary felt life inside her push, insist, demand survival.
She would not fail. She could not fail.
The mountains held them, the valley tested them, but together they moved, careful, deliberate, alive, and determined to survive whatever came next.
Dust rose faintly in the distance. Hooves echoed somewhere far below.
Mary clenched her jaw, drawing strength from the life inside her. Eli's hand brushed hers.
Forward, he said.
And together, they stepped into the unknown, shadows stretching long, survival and hope entwined with every cautious step.